This is Carla Hinton reporting for the Oklahoman and NewsOK.com. I'm here in the studio with Sam Porter, Director of Oklahoma Baptist Disaster Relief. He's here to talk about his recent tour of the new National September 11th Memorial and Museum in New York City. Thank you for coming.
Glad to be here, Carla. Thanks for asking me.
Good. Well, one of the things that I want to know, and I know that our readers and viewers will want to know, how did you get to be a part of the invitation-only tour of the new memorial and museum?
Well, they had 5 days of opening. President Obama came the first day, and then the other 5 days were open by invitation only to surviving family members of those that died, first responders, police, fire, emergency workers, and then relief agencies that came up like we did and worked throughout those 9 months in some way or another.
So tell me, what were some of your first impressions of the memorial and museum?
Well, the first impression is when you walk into the plaza, which the World Trade Center complex covered 16 acres. And so now that entire area, of course they're rebuilding the 7 buildings that were damaged or destroyed, but it is just a living memorial that's just is awesome. I mean, it's beautiful. They have 2 what they call reflection pools, but they're the exact dimensions of the site of the 2 buildings, and then have a list of every name. But my first impression was how beautiful it is, and then as we went into the memorial site itself, the building, there's 7 stories. It goes down 7 stories because that's how far to bed it goes, all the way to bedrock. That it was one of the most well done, organized, and telling the complete story that I've ever seen in any museum.
Okay. Now tell me a little bit. You talked about this bringing back some memories for you. Tell me a little bit about how you came to the New York City, that site anyway, back in 2001.
Okay, thank you. Well, you know, I've had people ask me for the last 13 years, why did they choose Oklahoma Baptist to go? Well, we were invited to go at the expense of 168 people that lost their lives in the Murrah bombing in April 19th, 1995. And our national director called. As a matter of fact, like everyone has a story of what happened that morning, how they discovered. But I was at my office. As a matter of fact, the 2nd building was hit when I was driving to work that morning, and I set up the TV for to know, kind of find out what's going on. But while I was there talking with our chaplain leader, I'm the disaster relief director, and we have a chaplain leader, we were saying, what's going to happen? I said, well, I don't know, but I'm sure Baptist Disaster Relief will be involved in some way. And my phone rings, and they called me to be as the state director of Baptist Disaster Relief because of our experience at the Murrah bombing. They said, we want you to come to New York City as soon as you can. And we were on the phone asking us to come before the 2nd building ever fell. And actually, during that conversation, the 2nd building fell. So that's how fast our national leaders for Southern Baptist Disaster Relief kicked into gear. And the line that he said, Carla, was in my head and heart. I mean, it captivated my head and heart for months and months. He said, no, up until today, no one in the United States knows more about terrorism than Oklahoma. He said, so I need you to come as soon as you can. They allowed us to go to New York City, and the door was open for us to coordinate the chaplaincy at Ground Zero in New York City.
Okay. Well, tell me, going back to the memorial and museum, you mentioned a couple of details to me in an earlier interview about the cross. Matter of fact, you took a picture next to the cross. Why did you do that?
Well, matter of fact, that first time that we were standing there with those other agencies, our federal agency guys, someone came over and said, have you seen the cross? Have you seen the cross? And I'd never been to the Twin Towers World Trade Center before in my life. But yet when the buildings fell, right beside that was a federal building that housed Secret Service and FBI and all the federal agencies in New York City. Most people didn't know that, but it was the federal place, like our Alfred P. Murrah building was here.
Right.
Well, when it fell, a piece of the beam that was in the perfect shape of a cross, probably about 15 feet tall and 10 feet wide, the cross beam, broke off and fell right into the top of the federal building and went down a few floors, and it just stuck into the floor.
Okay.
And it just stood just like you would think of a cross on Golgotha.
Okay.
And it had is either aluminum or stainless steel, I'm not sure what, that was kind of wrapped around one cross beam of it that looked like a shroud, the way some churches decorate a cross at Easter time, was on that cross. And it just became almost like a symbol of hope. You know, Christians look at the cross as hope that Jesus gave his life. And I'm telling you, workers went in there, people went in there, whether they were believers or not, they saw that cross, and I saw grown men. They would go there for just a time of reflection, just to take a break, and they would look there and stand there and cry. And so we had a chance to pray with guys, and it was a cool thing. Well, they took that out of that building and put it up on the east side of the site for many months, even a few years, behind St. Paul's Chapel. And it became controversial for people that weren't Christians, but still it was a symbol of hope to most of people, saying, you know, that's amazing how that happened, fell randomly right into that building. But they have moved that into the museum at a very prominent place. Very well done, very very well done, not offensive to even nobody that comes through, because it tells how it happened and where it landed.
Okay, good. And so that's the one that you took a picture with?
Yes, yeah, and I wanted to make sure that Bob got a picture of me with it, because it was just a great symbol of hope to, I mean, I had people come talk to me all the time, because we were identified as chaplains. We had hard hats, had chaplain on it, and they would come over, and people would ask us, and when I say people, it was firemen, policemen, and construction workers, and then agency people, and they would come and ask us, would you pray for us? I mean, I've been a minister since I was 14 years old, but I've never prayed more nor cried more in an emotional setting than I did those days at Ground Zero, because it was just such a tender, emotional time, you know, for the world, for the whole world.
Well, I just have one last question for you. What are Oklahoma Baptist Disaster Relief crews up to?
Well, we're still, at this recording, I think we're 1 year and 3 days past the tornado well, actually the first tornado was May the 19th, and then the 20th hit more. I've dealt with the tornado every single day since May the 19th, 2013. But that's a good thing. We respond to disasters everywhere, and we're still helping people go through recovery. One of the things we've done is we've been able to put 68 families that had no way to recover. They had no insurance, so their insurance was way underinsured. We've identified 68 families in the zone, especially east of Moore and Oklahoma City, Norman, from Little Axe and Bethel Acres, and Stillman Estates was a real hot topic last year at this time. We've actually put 18 mobile homes back in Stillman Estates. There were 90 mobile homes destroyed in just an instant out there. But we identified people who've gone through case workers and study. We also did the floods in Boulder last fall. There were 18,000 homes destroyed in Colorado. We worked that for 2.5 months. Did fires 3 weeks after we had our tornadoes in Colorado Springs. Just the other, back a month ago, we were in Quapaw, redid some houses and did chainsaw work. And then we had fires in Guthrie. And so I think we, just this past week, we finished what we call an ash out. When a home burns, you still have to clear all that debris off, so they can either pull in another mobile home or they need to redo a slab and start building another house. And so we helped 23 families at no charge to have their homes put back. It took us about a week and a half to do those 23 sites, but it takes a lot of volunteers. After the tornado itself last year, everyone's documented there were 4,035 homes and businesses destroyed across the 3 tornado tracks. And our disaster teams, and I had a lot of help from 13 states come in, we cleared 1,200 home sites of the debris.
Okay.
It's almost a third of the deal. Our volunteers cleared that many home sites, and even though your home is destroyed, it's still your stuff.
Right.
And even though it's in two-foot pieces, and it costs between $4,000 to $8,000 to have that cleared if you call one of the wrecking companies to come do that. And so we believe we saved Oklahoma, victims of the tornadoes between $4 to $8 million because we cleared that off at no charge, put it to the curb, and then FEMA contractors picked that up and hauled it away. And we do that just because we want to share the love of God that's in our heart and make a difference. And so the families could use that money to put to something else in rebuilding and getting their lives back together.
Okay.
So we're still doing those things, and we're still putting people back into those homes right now and doing a lot of reconstruction as well.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks
for
for asking me, Carla.
Today to talk to us about this. I know these are some sensitive topics in a lot of ways. So
well,
thank
they
you.
are, but I say something when I speak in churches all the time that I say this, and I really believe this is a fact of life. If God calls you to do anything in life, He will equip you to carry out what He's called you to do. And I was a pastor for 20 years, and I did a lot of volunteer missions. I never knew, what I'd be doing, the rest of my life, and except I was going to be a pastor. But I've been on disasters of tsunamis and hurricanes and earthquakes and tornadoes and everything. And I've seen probably more death and destruction than anybody in Oklahoma, literally, even soldiers. But the fact is, God's called me to do that, and He's equipped me to do that. And I have a lot of people praying for me. And I've surrounded myself with really hundreds and several thousand Oklahoma volunteers that says we want to make a difference in other people's lives when their world falls apart. So it's a great honor to do what we do, serve not only in Oklahoma, but anywhere God opens the door around the world.
Okay, good, good. Well, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks
Carla.
for that. This is Carla Hinton reporting for The Oklahoman and NewsOK.com. For more, read The Oklahoman.